In the meantime, 3 men who survived the 1976 gondola accident in Vail had never really talked about it before, really with anyone. But they told that story for the first time to investigative reporter Kevin Vaughn and photojournalist Tom Cole.
And Kevin and Tom are back. We don't have Tom, I believe. I know we have Kevin Vaughn to take a look back at the decision when the men decided to break their silence.
The question about the 1976 Vail gondola accident would come up in gatherings. Gatherings where someone knew that as a young man, Jack Manley survived a 125-foot plunge into a mountainside. A fall that badly injured him and 7 others and killed 4, one of them a friend.
I've been in places where, hey, tell them what would happen to you.
The answer was always no.
I'm sorry, man. You know, that wasn't an event, you know. It was a tragedy.
A tragedy shrouded in silence for Manley and the other 2 remaining survivors. When Greg Dietrich left the Vail Valley shortly after the accident, he'd tired of people asking about it and speculating.
What do you people even know? Just shut up. You weren't there. You don't know anything.
It took 50 years before each would decide to tell the story, but it was not easy.
I think it. Sorry.
You can probably see that I'm not 100% comfortable.
Skip Conieris hoped it might help others.
I think a lot of people have to deal with all kinds of difficult, tragic events, and to some degree, sharing that experience with other people makes it a little less isolated and less frightening. I think the question you're asking, what happens after, is an important one.
A question with an answer nothing like the one Manley gave all those years.
Jack talked about some people like, yeah, tell us about it. And he said, it's not that kind of story.
It's not that kind of story. It's a story of a tragedy that touched 12 people who climbed into gondola cars on a sunny Friday. Sisters from Inglewood and a college student from Illinois. 2 men from New York, a couple from South Dakota, a woman from Boulder, and 4 young men from a small town in New England.
Those 4 young men from Wayland, Massachusetts,
Yes.
just outside of Boston. I'm curious because for a lot of people, they're hearing the story for the first time, unless you grew up here through the 70s and heard about it. When you tell this story, we in the media get criticism sometimes, oh, you're just talking about someone else's pain. But when you went out and set out to do this and talk to those 4 guys, it was actually sort of cathartic in some way for them, was it not?
It definitely was. I can't speak for all of them, but Greg Dietrich has told me that this was hard to do, but he also wanted to do it, and that most importantly, he feels good that the story has been told, and he's been in touch with Skip and Jack, and they're telling him the same thing. It's interesting because, I started out with cold phone calls. You guys are journalists, you know what that's like. You call somebody across the country and say, I'm a reporter, I want you to talk to me about this terribly difficult thing you went through all these years ago. And I expected it was possible I might never hear back. Greg called back right away, and in our first conversation, I just knew that these guys had a story. And then it was a process of just talking to them over time. And when I asked, can we come down with cameras and lights and interview you, they all said yes immediately.
Well, I give a lot of credit to you and Tom Cole because it's hard to get, I know, it's hard to get people to open up, especially something so traumatic, and you were able to do that. Yeah. Was there a relief, like when the interview was complete with each of them, what was their immediate reaction? Did they exhale? Did they talk to you about it?
Yeah, it's funny because we interviewed them separately. They each live in a different state. I don't think they were really comparing notes between interviews, and all of them said the same thing. Like, I was incredibly anxious before this happened. Skip Conieris said to us something like, I was thinking a couple hours ago, I can't wait till this is over. And they all said the same thing. They were glad it was over once the interview was over. And, Skip said, that's no reflection on you guys. It's just, you build up to thinking about talking about something you've never talked about before.
Traumatic.
And, we've gotten so much response from people that are glad that this sad day has not just been forgotten forever, and particularly glad to hear the stories of these guys. And I think that even though this has been emotional and difficult, that they're glad the story was told as well.
It took a lot of time and effort. We're glad you dug into it as well. Kevin, thank you.
You bet.